Hello, and welcome back to the Misfits Career Transitions Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Pew. On this podcast, I am talking with leaders from all walks of life about making career transitions. No matter whether you're just starting out or looking to make a change after several years, my guests have insights and tips to help you navigate these transitions with greater ease and clarity. This week, I'm talking with a friend and former colleague who's relatively early on in her career, but she has amassed so much learning in the decisions and the pivot points that she's made throughout her career. We filmed this episode a few months ago, and I have been so excited to publish it. Thanks for tuning in. Let's dive in. All right, so the sassy light is on, which means I am so excited to welcome our next guest to the podcast. Today, we are joined by my friend and former colleague and one of my first and still standing reverse mentors, Maddie Davenport. I met Maddie a few years ago in the San Francisco halls where we both worked. She matched my energy, my enthusiasm, and much to the dismay of my cubicle mates, my boisterous and loud voice. Needless to say, we instantly clicked. Throughout the years, she has spurred my ideas. She's made me think about things differently. She's helped shape some of my own thoughts and my own ideas about my career. And this is part of the reason why she was going to be an absolute first round guest onto this podcast. She's been a constant supporter and an active listener to all of my crazy ideas about transitions. So I am so excited for her to share her perspectives. So before we get into the proper introduction of Maddie, I wanted to just give a little bit of sense of her background here. So we all know that the Misfits podcast is about navigating career transitions, right? And it's about learning how to find your fit. And while still early on in building her own career path, Maddie is no stranger to taking transitions of her own. And that's what we're going to dive into today and spend some time talking about. And it's exactly the reason why I wanted her on the show. So with that as a backdrop, please join me officially in welcoming Maddie to Misfits. Hi, Maddie.
Hi. Wow. I feel like I'm coming out onto a stage and there should be applause right now.
Oh, I'll drop in I can drop in the clapping sound the next time.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So I just kind of shared a little bit about your background, and that's just always, I think, what someone can read on a piece of paper about you. Mm-hmm. But I'm always really curious about, if I were to put you up there, and I'm doing it right now, how do you see your steps? How do you introduce yourself to a professional world today?
Totally. Well, I grew up in Sacramento, California, which is about 2 hours away from the Bay Area for anybody not familiar with Northern California. And Sacramento is a small-ish town. It's definitely growing, but the two main industries there are real estate and politics. Mm-hmm. And given it's the capital, and my parents work in real estate, and my dad builds and my mom sells homes. So we moved a lot growing up, and because they made us pack up our rooms that we loved so dearly every year, I decided, okay, I'm not going to go into real estate because this sucks. I'm going to pursue politics, because that seemed to be the only other viable option. And so after taking, many different internships and, trying all the different avenues you can in the political field, wound up back in Sacramento after I graduated from college, majored in political science at UC Berkeley. And after being in Sacramento for about a year post-grad, I was like, wow, this town is way too small. I need to get out of here. Fasting forward a little bit, I ultimately realized that, like my dad as a general contractor, I love building things. I really am motivated by the opportunity to lay bricks with other people and bring visions to life. And I really found that passion, and I've channeled it through the various roles I've had at the company since then.
So as we were talking about kind of this whole podcast and putting it all together, we recognize that, yes, you are still early on in your career, but you've already had so many of these cool zigzag moments. And when I went back and I was looking through some of your LinkedIn posts, and I've seen from you over the last year, they've kind of all centered around, taking chances, making changes, getting out of your comfort zone and pursuing your purpose. Some might even call it experimenting. Can you talk a little bit about that pursuit and your approach to, as you talked about, building your career roadmap?
Totally. Yeah, it's funny as you were describing taking chances and making changes. I think of the song, it's so cheesy, but the song Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson. I
Yeah.
mean, like we
I'm
all, if
saying
you
it
grew
from the
up,
top of my lungs.
yeah, if you were born in the 90s or before, you know what I'm talking about. Um, but that song always resonated with me because I remember very clearly listening to that song when I was first contemplating leaving my hometown of Sacramento, going to the Bay Area and trying to find a job in the political realm at a tech company. And I felt this like innate need to, make a change. And I think a part of it comes from the fact that I moved so many times growing up and saw my parents like bring, they together brought a vision to life by moving our family into a new house, like pretty much every year of our childhood. And so, there was that innate desire to do that in my own life and in my own way. And so, I've just always been motivated by this notion of transitions and building and trying new things and seeing how I can stretch and grow along the way and all the amazing people I can meet along the way. So, and that is what has formed me as a person. And I have zero regrets over, being somebody who pivots and who is not really taking the conventional path in her career at all.
Yeah, you and I, we've talked about this because we grew up very similarly. We moved around a lot. And I think it piqued a lot of our areas of interest. You, like me, we get passionate about a lot of things and we want to dive in and we want to
too many things.
Right. Sure. Yes, definitely sometimes too many things. Can kind of lead us down these fun little left-hand turns and that sort of thing. But, it's been what has really shaped both of us in our careers and how we pursue things. But I don't think everybody really shares that view about making changes all the time. And I'm sure I am not alone by any stretch of the means when I say that my parents really worried when I left a job after 2 years or even after 10 years, which was a bit foreign for my dad, who stayed at the same company for 40 some odd years, albeit he had many different roles within that company. So maybe just saw it as a risk. How have you, or, have you kind of experienced that same feedback on the changes that you have made?
Definitely. It's interesting. Some of the things that have been said to me over the years. One person once told me, you bounce around a lot. One person once said, recently said actually, wow, you've been in this role for 2 years now. That must be a record for you. And there was kind of like a backhanded compliment to both of those phrases. And, like no hard feelings because they're great people and that's just their perception and perception is reality. But my reality is very different and how I've gone about my career has been nothing but effective for me in terms of like where I'm looking to go. And at the end of the day, I think we as people are we're naturally resistant to change because we want to be comfortable and we want to feel secure. And so people who are misfits like you and me, Sarah, don't fit that mold. Yeah. And so when other people see somebody who is not, taking the conventional path, it's unfamiliar to them. It makes them uncomfortable, and they naturally kind of want to other you. But I lean into that because it makes us stand out, and people want to dig into that and hear your story, and you might even provide a point of inspiration for them. And I would also say that just in the modern day workforce, the jobs that our parents and our grandparents had are no longer really relevant. And like work is changing every day, every second now, especially with new technologies like AI. And so I feel like the modern day career path is actually better suited to people like you and me who are able to pivot and like eager to versus people who are willing to just like keep the steady course.
Yeah. And I also think, and maybe you've kind of found this too, and you can speak a little bit about, maybe some of the different roles that you have had. Because when I look at some of the background, and I know the roles that you've had, and they have been different, but there is that element of, even from the days of government relations work that you did, I am sure that you can kind of take a look back at each one of those areas and say, I see now where I sit in your role in strategy and brand initiatives today. You could probably see little elements of those roles that you're utilizing today that make you so much stronger in the role that you have. Like I always question that, well, you're moving around a lot. I was like, well, I got what I needed to out of that role, and I'm using it now. It makes me so much better. Going from marketing to PR, going from PR and marketing to sales, and then back again. You use those skill sets so much more effectively by knowing and having a full round skill set. Do you find that same thing? Are you seeing different things that you're bringing to light that maybe others who don't have that background?
Definitely. I would say that the company I work at too is really great about promoting internal mobility.
Yeah.
And so I've been very lucky to be able to bounce around and try new things. I've worked in sales. I'm now, in brand. I worked for an executive, kind of in the chief of staff office. And I started out on the government relations team. And, when somebody looks at my resume, they're like, huh, what have you done? Or tell me about that, and the common thread actually that I've realized over the past, 6 years being here is that, if there's ever a challenge that people are not willing to tackle, or that just seems too high to surmount, that's what I want to be working on. And somehow I've been able to find, the corner of the company where I can go do that. I think my secret power is, I'm a builder, but I'm also a connector. And I like to bring people together to build and bring a vision to life. And there's so many different ways in which that can, translate, or different, use cases or opportunities. And so I don't even know, like, when I think about what my, next job could be, or what my dream job might be, like, whenever people ask you, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, my dream job probably doesn't exist today, because in terms of like where all these unique experiences and skills I've gained from all this will eventually land me, who knows? That's kind of the fun of it. It's also a bit stressful, but it's also fun.
Well, and it's hard to tell, especially with, look, if I was hosting this podcast a year ago, we wouldn't be talking about things like AI. I wouldn't be using different formats of AI to help navigate what I'm doing with this, and the amount of learning that goes into it. And I know you share that same zest for like lifelong learning. Every time I find, or I'm reading something about you, it's like, I've earned a new certificate here, or I've done this. And it's like, but that's that quest that drives and motivates. Like, it's hard to say exactly what your next role is going to be, because there may be some new thing that your company is looking to challenge. And you're like, yeah, you know what? I can see how my background might fit to help with that, but also I want to go solve that problem. Like, that seems like something so interesting to go and do. Do you, like, as you start kind of thinking about, so you've been in the role, how long have you been in the role that you're in now?
Current role, well, the current one has been 2 years, which is why somebody made that comment.
True. So it's like, okay, she's got to be getting
like, wow, this is a milestone.
So, I mean, when you think about that, like, how do you know when it is time, whether a transition has been made for you? When do you know, like, I think I got that itch going?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, because I think that decision point around whether, you're ready to go or not, I actually, I've been very lucky because my network at my company is fantastic. And so all the opportunities I've actually had so far have been because somebody tapped me and was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this. And I didn't know about that kind of like secret superpower I had about building and connecting at the time. And now I'm able to, understand, okay, they saw that in me, and that's why they brought me on. I'm now at the point where, I'm 29, full disclosure. And so I'm like on the precipice of the next decade. And I'm now at the point where I'm like, okay. So now I'm at the point where I need to make a choice about whatever that next thing might be. And so, like, you're actually catching me at a time when, like, that's an active contemplation and something that I'm like putting a lot of thought into. And it's exciting and daunting at the same time.
Yeah. And it's actually a good segue, because I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I said something at the beginning, right? That was, you continue to be this reverse mentor to me. I mean, the amount of times you and I have had this conversation on walks or whatever over coffee, it's something that I know I'm extremely thankful for, because you have helped me kind of challenge some of my own myopic thinking patterns and really give me a different perspective. Can you talk about the impact that coaches, mentors, advocates have had on your career, especially as you're contemplating, like, gosh, where do I go next?
Yeah. What's funny is I actually think your circle of coaches, mentors, advocates, a lot of times people think that gets bigger as you grow older, as your career progresses. Mine has gotten smaller.
Really,
because I've learned, and I've learned the hard way, that your gut knows. You don't actually need that many people to like validate what your intuition is already telling you. And so I think it's more important to have, a board of advisors, which consists of maybe like 3 to 5 people who can be personal and or professional in terms of your relationship with them, and like who really know you and are willing to challenge you. But I think if you try to cast this wide net and feel like you're appeasing everybody all the time, or you're taking direction from, a bajillion people, like you're just going to wind up confused. Yeah. And so how I'm going about, approaching this juncture I'm at in my career in terms of thinking about like what's next, it's really thinking about those, 3 to 5 people whose opinions I respect and value, and who I know respect and value me. And I'm really only going to ask them. I'm not going to ask anybody else what I should do.
Yeah, because everybody has an opinion. And, as we've talked about, like those that are like, well, maybe you shouldn't take a little jump right now. It's like, well, you don't.
Yeah.
I respect that, but it's the same thing of like, I'm working on a side project right now, and I could ask everybody in my network for input on it. And I got input yesterday from somebody, and I was like, you know what? No, I want 5 people, the people that I trust.
Yeah.
And they're contrarian to one another. I've got one person that I know is always going to push because she knows me probably through thick and thin. And I've got somebody else who's going to give me a little bit of the light the fire underneath my butt. And I've got someone who's the creative, right? Who's going to just got that spur those creative ideas that I hadn't thought of before. But outside of that, I don't, there's certain people that your opinions are great, but I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, and that comes like, I think that's a confidence that comes with time. I think especially as women, we feel more unsure of ourselves and our decisions. And like, I've been lucky to have women like you in my life over the years who've instilled this confidence in myself, as I'm about to turn 30. And I have like a conviction in like my career and my decisions that I didn't 6 years ago, let alone even like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like my group of coaches and mentors and especially advocates I've learned how different they are than my friends, right? My friends are my friends because they're my friends.
Yeah. And they pump you up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're those people, they're my cheerleaders that I need on the side, but not always the best at giving me what I need for my career. And it's those people that are going to be in those rooms when I'm not there that say, oh yeah, I remember, Sarah, especially when I'm going through my own career transition and trying to figure out what's next, I've gotten those people now calling and saying, I remember you were really good at X. This would be a good opportunity for you. And it's like, that's good. And it's starting to build
and interesting up. They remember that about you too.
Right. Which I always think is such a great tactic for people to do, is to go out and actually ask unsolicited. What do you remember me for? Besides my loud voice and besides being in cubicle environments.
Hey, that's probably what half of my company remembers me for. So that, or being like 6 feet tall. I don't know.
When you think about that, like talking to your own network, because you are so active in, the women's network and being a coach and mentor to others. When you think about those that might be contemplating a career transition, especially in the early stages of their career, what are some tips or words of advice that you could share with those folks for them to kind of think about this differently?
Yeah, I would definitely come up with a list of your non-negotiables and keep it small, because life doesn't always, fulfill every wish you have, unfortunately. So come up with your list of non-negotiables, the things that you absolutely must have in your next gig. And that could be related to the manager, that could be related to the actual work itself. It could be related to where you're going to live and work, whatever it might be. And then use those as like filters through which you look at job opportunities. And only until you find that job opportunity that crosses off all those non-negotiables, and ideally also starts to, those like cherries on top, starts to have those, should I think you even consider it. I don't even think at that point you then necessarily go for it, because I think the next thing you really need to consider, and this is one of the non-negotiables I always have, is like, who is my day-to-day manager / leader? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you don't jive with that person, like, that's going to suck. You're going to interact with them more than, potentially your partner or spouse or, whoever is you're living with or seeing, and that always really mattered to me. And I tend to follow people more than I do necessarily titles or roles, because I want to model and learn from people I admire, respect, and genuinely like.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up because I want to ask you a couple of the more fun questions around just kind of getting to know you a little bit more and how you, I mean, I know you, but for the benefit of everybody else who doesn't know some of this stuff, a little rapid fire section for you.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, what is on your music playlist?
Oh my gosh. Well, I got married 2 weeks ago, and one of my bridesmaids had this epic playlist that was all like 90s, like girl pop.
Oh my God.
And yeah, like it was basically all the like rom-coms I grew up watching, like those songs. And so I've been listening to that a lot just because it's a great throwback.
Yeah. That might answer my question around what do you listen to get motivated?
That would be different, actually.
Okay.
So, in the context of like, well, actually, for pretty much anything, especially if I'm at the gym, I love 80s rock, like Van Halen, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses. Yeah, those are pretty much on repeat. And then if I just need to get motivated to, I don't know, just like get out of bed and go about my day, especially if I'm on the weekend, I'm like, oh, all right, I have to go run some errands. I just throw some Taylor Swift on. And then I'm instantly, not her most recent album because it's a little too moody for me, but like, like the pop stuff before TTPD.
Yes. I'm right there with you. I've got the Love. There's a couple of ones around the Love album. I can't remember the exact name, but they're the ones that like make me want to put on my headphones and just dance in my room.
On Lover.
Yeah. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Yeah, totally.
That's the one that I just listen to when I need to get like hyped up.
Yeah, that's actually up there for me too, Sarah. Yeah. Lover and Reputation, which are like very different vibes, like entirely opposite, but like, yeah, totally.
We won't go into our own diatribe.
Yeah.
So if you have to, you come home from like a wickedly busy day, what's your favorite thing to do to unwind?
I love typically at the end of the workday, and fitness is something I really value because it does more for me mentally than honestly does physically. Like the happiness hormones are like a real thing. So typically I like to go to the gym and do a little strength training session or like Pilates or something and just move my body and like totally disconnect from the world. And if I can't do that, I will just squeeze in a walk. I live in the Marina District in San Francisco, and so like I'm literally looking at the water. We have a great location here. And so I just walk along the water and all is right in the world again.
Yeah, I agree. If you could have any job for one day, regardless of skill or qualifications, what would it be and why?
Well, I always go back to what I wanted to be when I was growing up, which I really don't know what this says about me, but I still would be curious to do it at some point in my life. If and this is all theoretical, I do not intend to ever run for president, but I've always been like, what would it be like to be the president of the United States for one day? Like, oh my God, genuinely curious. I don't want that job, to be very clear. It seems like hell, but I would love to try that out.
So I should start putting my Maddie for president signs away, just hide them in the closet. I would be on that chain so fast. About all of these skill sets that you've been building, I mean, they kind of all lead right into that. Maybe take some additional economics things and you've got it.
Yeah, some economics things.
Clearly, it's not going to be Sarah for president anytime soon, but
hey, I don't know. We can make a great team. I can see this.
I'll be your chief of staff. How's that?
Yeah, except everybody's going to tell us to shut up.
That's okay. We can let them.
Yeah.
All right. Last question for you, Maddie. If you had a theme song that played at every time you walked into a room, like the president's stage, what would it be?
I don't know if you've seen The Greatest Showman, the musical thing with Hugh Jackman. Okay. I love the song This Is Me and Kayla Settle is the woman who sings the majority of it. I don't know. It's just like I'm a big musical gal. I don't know. It's kind of a cheesy thing about me. But that song I love how she's just like fearlessly like unapologetic about who she is. And that's the energy that I always try to channel every day.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to talk about?
Oh man. Well, maybe kind of like putting that back to you a little bit. Is there anything that has come up in conversations recently with other people, you've been interviewing that we didn't touch on and get my point of view on?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I have been talking to a lot of people, and most of or a lot of the folks that I'm bringing on as guests are in the later stages of their career. They're folks like myself
Hmm.
that are kind of figuring out, I've been doing this for 20, 25 years. What do I do next? And I've heard these other comments of,
Yeah.
did I do all of this for this? Like, what do I do?
Kind of a midlife crisis.
Right. And it's like, and I'm trying to figure out, like, is this, like, where do I go from here? And so I think most of the conversations is like, what's that view and that perspective? And what's that view and that perspective of somebody who's coming into the workforce, like very
Hmm.
from the academia into the corporate America world, and
Yeah.
those that are just getting into this and kind of now that you've got your feet wet a little bit,
Right.
kind of like, would you do it any differently than how you did it before? Are there some like mistakes that you made along the way that you would change?
Yeah, wow. That's such a good question. And well, like two things on that. One, it's really funny to hear how, yeah, 20 to 25 years from now, people could be feeling the exact same way they did the 20 to 25 years earlier, Like I feel like as in life, work is very cyclical and you're gonna like have
Mhm.
these peaks and these valleys, and then you're gonna hit like totally rock bottom and be like, what the heck am I doing? Which is like reassuring to know we all go through the same experience, but also kind of, sad. Um, but in terms of whether I would do anything differently, you know, I really like I don't want to say no, it's been, perfect and I'm so
Sunshine
glad I'm
and
where I'm at.
roses.
Because yeah, no, because like that's just not what life is. Um I would say that I think the only thing I would do differently, I'm so glad with where I wound up and like very, very happy with, this foundation I've laid for whatever may be to come. I wish I had a little more clarity on what that might look like as a, planner, but it's okay. I think the only thing I would have done differently is I would have leaned into myself and been more authentic earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I feel like I tried to please people and quickly said yes to things and kind of honestly would let myself get pushed around
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like that was what I had to do to prove myself and to prove that, I could do it, especially as somebody who came from the political world and transitioned into corporate America. I don't know. I think I just had this perception of myself that was so far from what it actually was, but I didn't really lean into who I am,
Yeah.
and that's probably because I was still figuring it out.
Right.
But yeah, that would be my biggest advice, especially for a young woman coming into the workforce, is that like you're way more capable than you think,
Yeah.
and don't be anything but you.
Do you have, as I was going through my notes here, do you have a favorite book that inspires you?
Huh. Uh, In terms, my favorite book of all time is The Alchemist. Um, a mentor of mine, actually, a mentor and a dear friend, recommended it to me, and he told me that I am the alchemist at one point, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like in chemistry, like like huh, making magic potions. Um, and so this was after a few glasses of wine together one night. I was like, "Where are we going here?" So he told me, he's like, no, it's a book by a very famous author and you need to read it. And so I quickly Amazoned that, and it's very short and it even has pictures in it. So when I initially opened this book and saw that, I was like, he clearly doesn't think I'm very intellectual. And then I like got into it and kept reading and I'm like, oh, okay, like it clicked. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody hasn't read it, but it's a story about making a journey home
Mm-hmm.
and realizing what you were looking for was already there.
Mm-hmm.
And they really resonated with me on many levels. And I think it can be translated into both personal and professional life. So that's my favorite book.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've read it too, and it's one of those books that every couple of years I pull back out and I read it again because it is just, and every time I find something a little bit different, but it speaks so much to the career journey that you have been on, that pursuit of just finding out new parts about yourself, new parts about that lifelong learning aspect of things, and always figuring out that it's gonna lay itself the way that it does, and continuing to
Right.
learn, continuing to trust in your own voice and in your own drive. And I think it does take time. It does take time for that confidence to grow, but it's that continuous pursuit that just leads you into so much more learning about yourself. And that's what I've loved about watching your journey. I've loved about watching the decisions that you've made. And even just your most recent decision of getting married and watching that completely unfold. But Maddie, I want to say thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for continuing to inspire me as you navigate that journey. And I know a lot of folks will take a lot of lessons and some, self-awareness aspect of it's okay to have some crazy left turns and some crazy right turns, as long as you take a look and say, what am I building toward? Because you never know, it could lead you to Maddie for president at some point.
All right. Well, on that note.
All right, that's it, everyone. Keep it sassy, Misfits.
And I'm gonna hire you as my campaign manager, Sarah Pew.
All right, everyone.
This was so fun.
Yep. Thank you so much. Keep it sassy, Misfits. We will catch you up on the next episode. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
There is something about talking with Maddie that makes me take stock in my own career decisions. She has such a strong sense of who she is, and watching her grow and mature in her career and make some of the decisions that she's made as she's navigated this career has just been so enlightening and insightful. What I love about Maddie's story is that it highlights the value of being adaptable and being open to new opportunities. All right, so here are some of the key insights that I took away from my conversation with Maddie. First, trust your intuition. Limit that external input. Maddie found that as she progressed in her career, her circle of advisors actually got smaller. She learned that your gut often knows best, and you don't need countless opinions to validate what your intuition is already telling you. So the action item here, next time you face a career decision, try making a choice based on your intuition first. Write down those initial thoughts before you seek out any external advice. And then compare your gut feeling with the input that you receive from others. The second is focus on your core group of advisors. So Maddie suggested having a small, trusted circle of 3 to 5 people whose opinions you value, rather than seeking advice from every single person that you know. These should be people that you know really well and people that you respect and understand your environment, but also those people who are willing to challenge you. So here's the action item I want for you. Reflect on your current network. Identify those 3 to 5 individuals who could form your core advisory group. Think about it as like your board of trustees or your board of advisors for your career. Reach out to them and explain your intention to seek their guidance more regularly. The third is identify your non-negotiables. When you're considering a career move, Maddie recommended making a short list of those absolute must-haves in your next role. This helps ensure that you're making choices that truly align with your priorities. So the third insight that I pulled from Maddie is around identifying your non-negotiables. When considering a career move, Maddie talked about making a short list of absolute must-haves for your next role. This will help you ensure that you're making choices that truly align with your priorities. So the action item this week, do that. Write down your non-negotiables. Consider factors like your work environment, leadership style, growth opportunities, and work-life balance. If you've listened to the last episode, this is similar to how Paul talked about building his purpose statement. It's okay to have unexpected turns in your career path. What matters is that you continue to learn and grow while staying true to yourself. By following Maddie's insights and the insights that we've heard from so many other Misfits already, you can navigate your career transitions with more confidence and purpose. That's it for this week's episode. Keep it sassy, Misfits. We'll see you next time.